When we think of ancient letters, especially ones that made it into the New Testament, we usually picture these calm, thoughtful, theological documents. But what if I told you that one of the most influential letters ever written was actually raw, deeply personal, and sometimes just plain furious? Today, we're diving into 2 Corinthians, not as a piece of formal scripture, but as a letter born from a seriously explosive conflict.
Okay, so let's get right into it. The thing that's so fascinating about this letter is its tone. It's all over the place. It swings from this incredibly tender vulnerability to this fierce, biting sarcasm. So the big question we're going to tackle is, what on earth could make a leader write something this passionate and this personal? What was really at stake here?
To really get what's going on in the letter, you first have to understand the relationship behind it. And by the time the Apostle Paul is writing this, his relationship with the church in Corinth, a community he actually founded, is, well, it's on the verge of total collapse. It had gotten really strained.
It seems like this whole thing went south in a couple of stages. At first, it was just a classic case of people playing favorites with their leaders. Paul, Apollos, Peter. Who's the better speaker? Oh, I like the last guy more. It's this subtle poison that starts to shift everyone's focus from the actual message to the personalities. But then the problem got a whole lot bigger, and the threat became way more dangerous. And that's when a new group of leaders waltzes into town. They even called themselves special apostles, or super apostles. And their strategy? It was simple and it was brutal. To build themselves up, they had to systematically tear down the guy who came before them, Paul. This wasn't some friendly rivalry. This was basically a hostile takeover.
And believe me, this wasn't random. It was a full-on, systematic takedown. They launched this campaign of criticism that was aimed at every single weakness they thought he had, and it was all designed to completely destroy his credibility with the very people he cared about most.
And these attacks, they were personal. I mean, really personal. They called him fickle just because he had to change his travel plans. They tried to paint him as some kind of coward, all tough in his letters, but a total pushover in person. They pointed out that he didn't have official certificates or letters of recommendation. They even mocked his public speaking skills. And then, and this is the weirdest one, they claimed the fact that he didn't charge for his work proved he was an amateur.
And this just lays it all out so clearly. This was a clash between two completely different ideas of what a leader should be. You had the special apostles on one side, charging big fees, flashing their fancy resumes, and making it all about them. And then you had Paul, who worked for free, who said his only recommendation was the changed lives of the people he served, and who saw his job as just that, service.
So with all that coming at him, how does Paul even begin to respond? Well, the first 7 chapters are his defense, but it is not at all what you'd expect. Instead of getting bitter, he responds with this shocking sincerity and tenderness. He basically just opens up his heart and lets them see everything.
Take the accusation that he's unqualified, that he lacks paper credentials. Paul's response is honestly incredible. He says, "I don't need a letter of recommendation because you are my letter of recommendation." The proof of his work isn't some piece of paper. It's written in the lives of the very people he served. The real acid test of leadership is the people it produces.
And this quote just perfectly sums up the vibe of this whole first section. He's not denying the struggle or the pain. He owns it. He's reframing all that suffering not as a sign of weakness, but as proof of his resilience and the power of his message. It's just a profoundly honest and moving self-portrait.
Okay, but just when you think you've got the tone of this letter figured out, bam, everything changes. After 7 chapters of this tender defense, the letter takes a sudden, shocking turn. The gloves come completely off, and Paul switches from a heartfelt defense to a fierce, passionate counterattack, using irony and sarcasm as his main weapons.
So what does he do? He pulls out this amazing rhetorical move. He basically says, okay, you guys want to hear boasting? You think that's what a real leader does? Fine, I'll play your game. I'll speak as a fool. He adopts their own arrogant style to sarcastically mirror it right back at them and show everyone just how empty and ridiculous it really is.
And off he goes. He starts by matching their credentials, point for point. You claim a great heritage? So do I. You're an Israelite. Me too. He's meeting them right on their own turf. But then he completely flips the script. He raises the stakes. He moves from heritage to the one thing that actually matters, their service. And this is where his foolish boasting turns into something else entirely. He says, "I'm speaking like a fool here, but I am more." And this is the knockout punch. His resume isn't a list of honors, it's a list of suffering.
His big boast is a list of beatings, shipwrecks, robberies, and constant unending danger. In one move, he completely redefines what a leader's qualification should look like. It's not about status, it's about sacrifice. Wow, the passion is just pouring off the page.
Now here's where it gets really interesting structurally. The whole letter is kind of like a sandwich. You have the tender defense at the beginning, then the fierce attack at the end, and right smack in the middle, chapters 8 and 9, he talks about fundraising for famine relief. It's brilliant, really. The thinking seems to be that if you can just get them to stop focusing on themselves and their internal drama and start caring for other people, maybe it could heal the whole conflict.
So you gotta ask, right? Why all this passion? Why the defense, the sarcasm, the raw emotion? It'd be so easy to just write this off as a guy defending his reputation. But for Paul, it was clear that the stakes were much, much higher than just his own ego.
Because at the end of the day, Paul knew exactly what his opponents were doing. It's a classic playbook, right? If you want people to abandon a message, you attack the messenger. He wasn't defending his own pride. He was defending the integrity of the message itself, because he knew that if they brought him down, the message might go down with him.
And that leaves us with this really tough, timeless question for ourselves. Paul's story forces us to look at our own lives. When we're on the defensive, when our character or our work is being attacked, how do we know the difference? Are we actually standing up for a principle, for something bigger than us, or are we just protecting our own ego? It's a question as relevant today as it was in ancient Corinth,